Welcome back, coin collectors and treasure hunters. Today we're taking a closer look at 5 of the most valuable Lincoln Memorial pennies ever. These 1-cent coins were produced in large numbers, but certain rare varieties, minting errors, scarce dates, and high-grade examples can become highly desirable to collectors. We'll explore their unique features, history, rarity, and current 2026 market values, while showing you what to look for when checking your own coins. So grab your Lincoln Memorial pennies, check those dates and mint marks, and stay with us to discover which rare coins could be hiding big money in your collection. Let's get started. First up, the 1963 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin is an interesting piece of American numismatic history, especially for collectors who enjoy searching older copper cents for varieties, errors, and unusually high-grade examples. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark beneath the date on the obverse. More than 1.77 billion 1963 cents were produced, so the date and mint mark by themselves do not make every example rare. However, condition, color, strike quality, die varieties, and possible errors can dramatically change collector interest and value. The 1963 cent measures about 19 millimeters, weighs approximately 3.11 grams, and was made from the traditional bronze composition of about 95% copper and 5% zinc. For someone holding a rough or heavily circulated example, the most important point is that age alone does not automatically create a huge price. Instead, collectors look closely at exactly what makes that particular coin different from the millions of ordinary pieces produced in the same year. The story of the 1963 cent begins with the famous Lincoln cent design, which had already become one of the most recognizable American coins by the early 1960s. The obverse features Abraham Lincoln's portrait, with "In God We Trust" above him, liberty to the left, and the date to the right. The reverse carries the Lincoln Memorial, along with EPLUIBUSUNUM 1 cent and United States of America. The obverse design originated with Victor David Brenner, while the memorial reverse was designed by Frank Gasparo. The memorial design had been introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, replacing the earlier Wheatier reverse. By 1963, Americans were using these cents in everyday commerce, meaning many examples were exposed to years of pocket wear, scratches, dirt, oxidation, and environmental damage. That is why a rough 1963 cent can look very different from an original mint state example, even though both coins came from the same year's production. One of the most important details to examine on a 1963 Lincoln cent is the condition. A rough example may show substantial wear on Lincoln's hair, cheek, jaw, and coat, while the memorial and lettering on the reverse may also have flattened areas. Scratches, dark spots, corrosion, staining, and cleaning can further reduce collector appeal. For an ordinary circulated 1963 cent, the market value is generally modest rather than hundreds or thousands of dollars. Current reference sources show relatively low values for normal examples, while higher grades can bring considerably more. USA Coin Book, for example, currently lists an estimated range of about $0.18 to $1.24 or more for uncirculated examples, depending on grade. Another market data source currently shows approximately $2.25 for ungraded examples, around $3.02 in VF, about $22 in AU, and substantially higher figures for certain certified mint state grades, illustrating how dramatically condition can affect pricing. Therefore, if your 1963 penny is rough, don't assume that the coin is automatically worth thousands simply because it is more than 60 years old. The real opportunity comes from identifying something genuinely unusual. The color designation is another important factor for serious collectors. Copper Lincoln cents can generally be encountered in brown, or red appearances, with original red color often being especially desirable in high-grade coins. A circulated coin that has spent decades in circulation will normally lose much of its original bright copper appearance and develop a brown or darker tone. By contrast, a sharply preserved red example with minimal marks can attract much greater collector interest. PCGS records an auction result of $7,499 for a 1963 Lincoln cent graded MS67 RD, showing that exceptional preservation can produce a dramatically higher value than an ordinary circulated coin. This does not mean every 1963 penny can be worth thousands. Rather, it demonstrates the enormous premium that can exist for an exceptional certified specimen. For a rough coin, viewers should concentrate first on identifying varieties, errors, unusual surfaces, or other distinctive characteristics before imagining a major valuation. Another fascinating area is the possibility of a double die variety. PCGS lists 1963D Lincoln cents with DDO varieties, including brown, and red examples. A genuine double die is created during the die-making process and can produce noticeable doubling on selected design elements. This is very different from ordinary mechanical doubling, die deterioration, or damage caused after the coin left the mint. Collectors therefore examine areas such as the date, lettering, and other design features carefully and compare suspected doubling with reliable variety references. PCGS records an auction result of $358 for a certified 1963D DDO example graded MS64, demonstrating that a recognized variety can be considerably more interesting than a normal coin of the same date and mint. If you have a rough 1963D cent, however, be cautious. Circulation damage can create shapes that look like doubling. Before assigning a major value, a suspected variety should be authenticated or compared against established references. When it comes to the current market value in dollars, the 1963D Lincoln Memorial cent should be divided into several categories rather than given one exaggerated price. A heavily worn, ordinary example may be worth only a small premium over face value, while better circulated coins can bring a few dollars depending on market demand and exact condition. High-grade certified pieces can move into the tens or hundreds of dollars, and exceptional red specimens or recognized varieties can reach much higher levels. PCGS reports the $7,499 auction record for an MS67 RD regular 1963D cent, while its brown example page reports a $1,005 auction record for an MS67 BN specimen. These numbers are useful because they show the difference between an ordinary circulated penny and an exceptional certified coin. A rough 1963D should therefore not be advertised as automatically worth $1,000, $5,000, or $10,000. If a coin really appears to have a valuable variety or extraordinary preservation, professional examination and certification can make a major difference. Finally, if you discover a 1963D Lincoln Memorial 1 cent in rough condition, don't throw it away before checking it carefully. Start with the date and confirm that the small D mint mark is actually present. Examine both sides under good lighting, looking for unusual doubling, missing design elements, striking abnormalities, die cracks, off-center characteristics, or other features that appear to originate from the mint rather than from later damage. Check the coin's color and surfaces, but avoid harsh cleaning because polishing or chemical cleaning can destroy the original surface and reduce collector desirability. Most importantly, remember that the huge values reported for certain 1963D cents belong to specific exceptional examples, not to every coin from the date. The documented production of 1,774,020,400 pieces means the standard issue is not rare simply because it is old. The real excitement for collectors comes from finding the unusual coin hiding among ordinary examples. So before spending, selling, or dismissing your 1963D Lincoln cent, inspect it carefully, compare it with trusted references, and consider professional authentication when a potentially significant variety or high-grade specimen is involved. Market values can change based on grade, certification, color designation, surface condition, variety, errors, authenticity, and actual auction results. The values discussed above are reference market examples and are not a guarantee that every 1963D Lincoln Memorial cent will sell for those amounts. A rough circulated example should not automatically be considered a hundreds or thousands of dollars coin. Exceptional prices generally apply to specifically graded, certified, high-quality, or otherwise special examples. Always verify recent sales and professional price guides before making a buying or selling decision. Next up, the 1969D Lincoln Memorial 1 cent coin is an interesting piece of American numismatic history, especially for collectors who enjoy searching older Lincoln cents for coins with unusual varieties, strong original color, or exceptional condition. Struck at the Denver Mint, the 1969D cent carries the small D mint mark below the date on the obverse, identifying its production at Denver. More than 4 billion 1969D cents were produced, 4,2,832,200 pieces, so the date itself is not rare simply because it is old. However, the story becomes much more interesting when condition, color, strike quality, die varieties, and preservation are considered. The coin is part of the Lincoln Memorial cent series that began in 1959, replacing the famous wheat reverse with Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design. The obverse continued to feature Abraham Lincoln, originally designed by Victor David Brenner, with the inscriptions in God We Trust, Liberty and 1969, while the reverse displayed the Lincoln Memorial surrounded by EPLURBUSUNUM, 1 cent, and United States of America. Modern collectors often overlook ordinary circulated examples because millions survived, but high-quality survivors can be considerably more interesting. PCGS specifically notes that the 1960-90 Lincoln cent can be difficult to locate in high mint state grades, making exceptional examples much more desirable than the average old penny. The year 1969 was an important period in American history, and the Lincoln cent was already a familiar part of everyday commerce. By this point, the memorial reverse had been used for a decade, having debuted in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The 1960-90 cent was made from the traditional bronze composition used for Lincoln cents of this era, approximately 95% copper and 5% zinc, with a standard weight of about 3.11 grams and diameter of 19 millimeters. The Denver Mint produced the largest regular issue quantity of the three 1969 business strike mints, with 4,2,832,200 pieces compared with 1,136,910,000 from Philadelphia and 544,375,000 from San Francisco. Because the production number was so large, a normal circulated 1960-90 cent should not automatically be described as a rare coin worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Instead, collectors look for something that separates an ordinary example from a premium example. That might be an unusually sharp strike, attractive original red coloration, very high mint state preservation, or a recognized die variety. This distinction is extremely important when making a YouTube video about coin values. The date and mint mark identify the coin, but the grade and specific characteristics determine whether the coin is ordinary or genuinely collectible. A worn 1960-90 found in an old jar may have tremendous historical charm without having a tremendous monetary value, while an exceptionally preserved certified example can attract much more attention from specialists. When examining a 1960-90 Lincoln Memorial cent, the first thing to check is the date and the D-mint mark. After that, turn your attention to the overall condition. On the obverse, inspect Lincoln's hair, cheek, jaw, and the surrounding lettering for signs of wear. On the reverse, look carefully at the Lincoln Memorial, columns, steps, lettering, and rim. A coin that retains strong detail with minimal contact marks can be far more desirable than a heavily circulated example. Color is also important for copper Lincoln cents. Collectors generally distinguish between brown BN, red-brown RB, and red RD designations, with original red color often bringing a premium when combined with a high grade. Another fascinating area is die varieties. PCGS lists a recognized 1960-90 No FG, F-901 variety, referring to the absence of designer Frank Gasparo's initials on the reverse. A certified example of this variety can be worth substantially more than an ordinary 1960-90 cent. PCGS records an auction result of $505 for an MS65 RD 1960-90 No FG, F-901 sold by Heritage Auctions in February 2017. That is a perfect illustration of why collectors should not assume that every 1960-90 penny is worth a huge amount, but also should not dismiss every 1960-90 as worthless. If you have an old example, use good lighting and magnification to inspect the date, mint mark, lettering, memorial details, and especially the reverse area where the designer's initials would normally appear. However, apparent missing letters or weak details can sometimes result from wear, strike weakness, damage, or photographs, so a valuable variety should be authenticated before assigning a major premium. As of 2026, ordinary 1960-90 Lincoln Memorial cents generally remain affordable, particularly in circulated grades. Current published guides show that typical examples in lower grades may trade for only a small amount above face value, while uncirculated examples can bring more depending on grade and color. USA Coin Book currently lists an estimated value of about $1.24 or more for an uncirculated MS Plus example, while other market guides show substantially higher prices for exceptionally high-grade coins. Price Charting's current historical sales-based guide lists approximately $13 for MS63, $14.30 for MS64, $16.70 for MS65, $33.10 for MS66, $425 for MS67, and $510 for MS68, although these figures are guide estimates and can change with actual market activity. PCGS also documents a $191 auction record for an MS65BN example, and the previously mentioned $505 result for an MS65 RD-No FG variety. These figures demonstrate an important point for viewers. A normal old or dusty 1960-90 cent is not automatically a hundreds or thousands of dollars coin. The dramatic values generally belong to coins with exceptional grades, premium red color, recognized varieties, unusual errors, or other characteristics that collectors specifically seek. If someone discovers a 1960-90 in an old collection, the best approach is not to clean it or polish it. Cleaning can permanently damage the surfaces and may reduce collector appeal. Instead, handle the coin carefully by its edges, compare it with reliable references, and consider professional grading if the coin appears unusually sharp, original, and valuable. So before you spend or discard a 1960-90 Lincoln Memorial penny, take a second look. The coin may have been produced in enormous numbers, but the survivors are not all equal. A heavily worn example with scratches, corrosion, discoloration, or environmental damage may have little premium value, while a beautifully preserved coin with original red color and exceptional detail can be much more interesting. Pay particular attention to the demint mark, date, surface preservation, original color, strike quality, memorial details, and possible die varieties such as the No FG Fs-901 variety. The 1960-90 is also a reminder that rarity is not determined by age alone. A coin can be more than half a century old and still be common in circulated grades, while a very high-grade or unusual variety can become genuinely scarce. For collectors and treasure hunters, that is exactly what makes searching old Lincoln cents so exciting. You never know when an ordinary-looking coin might contain a feature worth investigating. Important value disclaimer. Market prices change with grade, certification, color designation, variety, eye appeal, authenticity, condition, and actual auction results. The values discussed here are reference market estimates and documented examples, not a guarantee that every 1960-90 Lincoln cent will sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars. Before buying, selling, or claiming a major value, compare the coin with current professional price guides, and for potentially valuable varieties, consider authentication and certification from a reputable grading service. Next up, the 1973 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin is an interesting piece of American coinage history, especially for collectors who enjoy examining older U.S. cents found in dusty boxes, inherited collections, jars, and everyday accumulations. The 1973 cent was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which means it carries no mint mark. So if you have a 1973 Lincoln Memorial cent without a D or S beneath the date, that absence is normal and does not automatically mean the coin is rare. According to PCGS Coin Facts, Philadelphia produced approximately 3,728,245,000 regular strike 1973 Lincoln cents, making this a very common issue in its ordinary circulated condition. The coin belongs to the famous Lincoln Memorial cent series, which began in 1959 when the reverse design was changed from the wheat ears to the Lincoln Memorial. Victor David Brenner's Lincoln portrait remained on the obverse, while Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial reverse honored the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The 1973 issue therefore sits in an important period of American history. It was produced during the early 1970s, when the United States was experiencing major economic and social changes, while the 1-cent coin continued to play a central role in everyday commerce. The 1973 cent was made from the traditional copper-based composition used before the later 1982 transition, approximately 95% copper and 5% zinc, with a standard weight of about 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19 millimeters. One of the first things collectors should understand about this coin is the meaning of the missing mint mark. On a normal 1973 Philadelphia Lincoln Memorial cent, there is simply no mint letter below the date. That is completely different from a coin where a mint mark was supposed to be present but disappeared because of an unusual minting problem. Philadelphia cents from this period were intentionally produced without a mint mark, so a dusty 1973 cent without a mint letter should not automatically be advertised as an extremely rare error. Nevertheless, the coin has several features worth examining carefully. On the obverse, look closely at Abraham Lincoln's portrait, the date 1973, and the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust. On the reverse, you will see the Lincoln Memorial surrounded by United States of America, 1 cent, and EPLUOBUSUNUM. Because these coins circulated heavily, many examples developed scratches, dark oxidation, discoloration, contact marks, and general surface wear. A coin described as dusty may simply need careful professional evaluation rather than cleaning. In fact, cleaning an old copper cent can damage its original surface and reduce its collector appeal. Collectors should also examine the lettering, date, rim, Lincoln's portrait, memorial columns, and overall strike for unusual characteristics. Genuine mint errors, strong double details, unusual die varieties, or exceptionally preserved examples can attract considerably more attention than an ordinary circulated 1973 cent. PCGS specifically notes that 1973 Philadelphia cents are common through about MS65, while much higher-grade pieces become progressively harder to locate. Now comes the most important part for anyone wondering whether a dusty 1973 Lincoln cent could really be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The honest answer is that most ordinary circulated 1973 no-mint mark cents are not worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Their huge mintage means that simply owning a 1973 Philadelphia cent does not make it rare. However, condition can make an enormous difference in the collector market. A normal circulated coin with considerable wear, scratches, discoloration, or environmental damage generally has very limited numismatic value. The situation changes dramatically when a 1973 cent is preserved in exceptionally high uncirculated condition, especially with attractive original red color and strong surfaces. PCGS records an auction result of $1,440 for a 1973 BN example graded MS65 BN, demonstrating that a particular certified high-grade coin can command a substantial price even though the date itself is common. For red examples, PCGS records an auction result of $3,960 for an MS67 plus RD 1973 cent. These are excellent examples of why collectors should never judge a coin's value solely by its age or by the fact that it has no mint mark. The market rewards specific combinations of grade, color designation, preservation, eye appeal, variety, certification, and buyer demand. When discussing the 2026 market for the 1973 Lincoln Memorial cent, it is important to separate ordinary examples from exceptional certified coins. A dusty, circulated 1973 Philadelphia cent should generally not be presented as automatically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. In many cases, such a coin may be worth only a small amount above face value if it has any significant collector premium at all. But a collector who discovers a remarkably preserved specimen should pay attention. PCGS lists the 1973 regular strike cent in brown, and red classifications, and its auction records show how dramatically prices can increase for exceptional grades. One 1973 MS66 RB example recorded a $35 auction result, while the MS65 BN example reached $1,440, and an MS67 Plus RD example reached $3,960. These numbers demonstrate that values in the hundreds or thousands are possible for particular certified high-grade coins, but they are not normal prices for every 1973 penny. If your coin is dusty or dirty, resist the temptation to polish it, scrub it, or use chemicals. Instead, inspect it under good lighting, check whether the original copper color remains underneath the surface, weigh it if appropriate, and look for unusual doubling or other possible mint errors. If the coin appears exceptionally preserved or has an unusual feature, professional authentication and grading may be worthwhile. Current population and auction information also show that high-grade examples are much more difficult than ordinary examples, with PCGS noting that pieces above MS67 are considered rare. So before you spend, sell, clean, or discard a 1973 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin with no mint mark, take a second look. The absence of a mint mark is normal for a Philadelphia issue, and the enormous production figure of more than 3.7 billion means that the typical circulated 1973 cent is not an automatic treasure. But coin collecting is all about the details, and the right details can make an ordinary-looking coin much more interesting. Examine the date carefully, study Lincoln's portrait, inspect the lettering and memorial design, check the rims and surfaces, and look for evidence of an unusual mint error or variety. Most importantly, pay attention to condition. A heavily circulated or dusty example is very different from a coin that somehow survived decades with nearly flawless surfaces and strong original color. Documented auction results prove that exceptional 1973 cents can reach the hundreds or even thousands of dollars, but those prices apply to specific high-grade or otherwise desirable examples, not every coin from the same year. So if you discover a 1973 no-mint mark cent in an old collection, don't assume it is either worthless or a fortune. Inspect it carefully and verify the grade, authenticity, variety, and recent market evidence before making a decision. Value disclaimer. Market values change with grade, certification, color designation, surface condition, variety, errors, authenticity, and actual auction results. The values discussed in this video are reference market examples and are not a guarantee that every 1973 Lincoln Memorial cent will sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars. Next up, the 1977 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin is an interesting piece of American numismatic history, especially for collectors who enjoy building complete sets of Lincoln Memorial cents from the 1959-2008 era. This particular example was struck at the Denver Mint and carries the small D mint mark beneath the date on the obverse, identifying its place of manufacture. The Lincoln Memorial cent had already become a familiar part of American everyday commerce by 1977, continuing the design introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The obverse features Victor David Brenner's famous portrait of Lincoln, with "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date to the right. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, displays the Lincoln Memorial Building, surrounded by United States of America and 1 cent, with EPLUIBUSUNUM above the memorial. According to PCGS, the 1977 cent had a mintage of approximately 4,194,062,300 pieces, making it a heavily produced issue rather than a scarce coin in ordinary circulated grades. But this is where the story becomes much more interesting. While millions of 1977 cents were produced, finding one that remains genuinely impressive in uncirculated condition, with strong original surfaces, sharp details, attractive color, and very few marks can be considerably more challenging. A coin can therefore be common by mintage, yet much harder to find at the very highest grades. For collectors, that difference between overall rarity and condition rarity is one of the most important ideas to understand when evaluating a coin, such as the 1977 Lincoln Memorial cent. One of the first things collectors should examine on a 1977 Lincoln cent is its overall condition, and whether the coin truly qualifies as uncirculated. An uncirculated coin should show little or no evidence of wear from being used in commerce, although it can still have contact marks, small abrasions, or other imperfections from the minting and storage process. The 1977 cent was made from the traditional bronze composition used for Lincoln cents of this period, consisting of approximately 95% copper and 5% zinc, with a standard diameter of about 19 millimeters and a weight of approximately 3.11 grams. Collectors should carefully inspect Lincoln's cheek and jaw, the fields around the portrait, the date, the lettering, and the reverse surfaces around the Lincoln Memorial. The color designation is also extremely important. Professional grading services commonly distinguish between brown, and red examples, because copper coins can change color over time depending on storage, handling, environmental exposure, and surface preservation. A bright, original red, RD example can attract substantially more attention than an ordinary brown circulated coin. The D mint mark is another important identifying feature because it confirms the Denver issue, and collectors should make sure that the coin has not been altered or damaged around the mint mark area. Strong luster, clean fields, crisp lettering, an attractive strike, and minimal spotting or discoloration can all improve collector appeal. It is also worth checking for unusual mint errors or varieties, but a normal 1977 cent should not automatically be described as an error coin simply because it looks unusual. The value comes from the combination of authenticity, grade, color designation, surface quality, eye appeal, and any genuinely recognized variety or mint error at first glance. The enormous mintage of more than 4 billion 1977 cents might make this coin appear completely ordinary, and in circulated condition that is generally true. However, condition rarity becomes increasingly important as the grade rises. PCGS specifically notes that the 1977 Lincoln cent is common through approximately the MS65 level, while MS66 becomes considerably more difficult, and MS67 examples are described as scarce. PCGS also reports that the finest certified examples reach the very high grades, where collectors begin competing for condition rarities. This is an important point for anyone watching coin value videos. A 1970 cent is not valuable simply because it is old, and it is not automatically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars merely because it is uncirculated. Instead, the serious premium appears when an example combines an exceptional grade with desirable color and preservation. PCGS records an auction result of $7,050 for a 1970 Lincoln Cent graded MS68 RD, demonstrating how dramatically the market can change at the highest certified levels. There are also significant differences among brown, and red pieces. For example, PCGS records an auction result of $1,260 for a 1970 MS63 RB example, illustrating that even a red-brown coin can sometimes command a substantial premium depending on the exact circumstances of the sale. These results should not be interpreted as the normal value of every uncirculated 1970 penny. Instead, they show why professional grade, color designation, certification, and market demand matter so much. If you have one of these coins, the most important question is not simply, is it old, but rather, how well preserved is it compared with other surviving examples? When discussing the 2026 market value of a 1970 Lincoln Memorial Cent, it is important to separate ordinary examples from exceptional certified coins. A typical uncirculated 1970 cent can have a modest value, and one current reference source lists an estimated value of around $1.24 or more for an uncirculated example, while emphasizing that condition affects the price. Higher grade examples can move into the tens, hundreds, or potentially thousands of dollars when they receive exceptional professional grades and desirable color designations. PCGS documented auction history provides the clearest evidence of this upper-end potential. The $7,050 MS68 RD result shows that a truly elite example can enter the thousands of dollars range. However, viewers should be careful with online claims suggesting that every 1970 penny is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The overwhelming majority are not. The coin's huge original mintage means ordinary circulated pieces are plentiful, while the premium examples are those that survived with extraordinary preservation. If your 1970 cent appears uncirculated, examine it under good lighting without rubbing or cleaning it. Look for original copper-red color, strong luster, clean fields, sharp details, and minimal contact marks. Do not polish, scrub, or chemically clean the coin because cleaning can permanently reduce its numismatic desirability. If the coin appears exceptionally clean and potentially reaches a very high mint state grade, professional certification may be worth considering, particularly if the expected value justifies the grading cost. Remember that auction records are historical results rather than guaranteed future prices, and market conditions can change. So, if you have a 1970 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin in uncirculated condition, do not immediately assume that it is a fortune, but do not dismiss it either. The coin represents an important period in the long history of the Lincoln cent, and its Denver mint mark, traditional bronze composition, memorial reverse, and potential for high-grade preservation make it an interesting collectible. The real excitement comes from the possibility of finding an unusually well-preserved example among millions of surviving coins. PCGS has identified the 1970 issue as common in lower mint state grades, but significantly more difficult in the highest grades, which is exactly why condition can transform an ordinary-looking penny into a desirable condition rarity. Before selling or trading, compare your coin carefully with certified examples and consider getting an expert opinion if it appears exceptionally sharp, bright, and free from significant marks. Important value disclaimer. Market prices can change based on grade, certification, color designation, surface condition, strike quality, eye appeal, recognized varieties or errors, authenticity, and actual auction demand. The values and auction records mentioned here are reference market examples, not guarantees that every 1970 Lincoln cent will sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars. A normal circulated or lower-grade 1970 cent should not be advertised as automatically rare or extremely valuable. The highest prices generally belong to specifically graded, certified, exceptional quality examples. So check your coin carefully, protect its original surfaces, and remember that sometimes the biggest discovery is not the date alone. It is the condition hidden inside an ordinary-looking penny. Next up, the 1980 Lincoln Memorial cent is a fascinating example of late 20th century American coinage and belongs to the famous Lincoln Memorial cent series that began in 1959, replacing the earlier wheat reverse design. The coin was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark located beneath the date on the obverse. In 1980, the United States continued producing enormous quantities of Lincoln cents for everyday commerce, and the 1980 issue had a reported mintage of approximately 5,140,098,660 coins, making it a very common date from a mintage perspective. The coin features Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design originally created by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse carries Frank Gasparo's iconic Lincoln Memorial design. The 1980 cent was made from the traditional copper alloy used during this period, consisting of approximately 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin, with a standard diameter of about 19 millimeters and a weight of approximately 3.11 grams. Although billions were produced, the historical importance of this coin should not be underestimated. Every 1980 cent represents a small piece of American monetary history from a period when copper alloy Lincoln cents were still being produced in huge numbers for circulation. For collectors today, the coin becomes especially interesting when its condition, color, strike quality, mint-made characteristics and possible errors or varieties are examined carefully. A circulated example in fine condition normally should not be described as automatically rare or worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, simply because it is more than 4 decades old. Instead, the real collecting interest comes from finding an unusually well-preserved example, a genuine mint error, or an exceptionally high-grade certified specimen. One of the most recognizable features of the 1980 Lincoln Memorial cent is its classic Lincoln Memorial reverse. On the obverse, Lincoln faces right with the inscriptions in God We Trust, Liberty, and the date 1980. Directly beneath the date is the important D mint mark, indicating that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. On the reverse, the words United States of America, EPLURBUSUNUM, and 1 cent surround the detailed representation of the Lincoln Memorial. Collectors should examine both sides carefully because condition can make a major difference in desirability. A coin described as fine, or around the F-12 level, is expected to show noticeable circulation wear, with major design elements remaining visible but with some finer details softened. On an ordinary 1980 cent, this level of wear does not normally create a dramatic premium. The more exciting possibilities occur when a collector discovers an unusual error, an exceptional strike, or a very high-grade coin with strong original red coloration and minimal marks. The 1980 is particularly interesting because modern Lincoln cents can appear nearly identical to casual observers, while having dramatically different values depending on preservation and certification. Collectors should therefore inspect the date, mint mark, lettering, rim, Lincoln's portrait, memorial details, and overall surfaces under good lighting. Look for unusual doubling, off-center striking, clipped planchets, broad strikes, die cracks, missing design details, or other genuine mint-made abnormalities. But remember that damage caused after the coin left the mint is not the same thing as a collectible mint error. The word rare needs to be used carefully when discussing the 1980 Lincoln Memorial cent. Because more than 5.14 billion were produced at Denver, the regular issue is not considered rare simply because of its age. However, rarity can change dramatically when the discussion moves from ordinary circulated coins to coins with extraordinary preservation. A fine-condition 1980 cent has already experienced substantial circulation, meaning the surfaces, lettering, Lincoln portrait, and memorial details will normally show evidence of handling. Such a coin is collectible, but it is not normally the type of specimen that should be advertised as automatically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The situation is completely different for coins preserved at extraordinary mint state grades. Professional grading services evaluate coins according to strict standards, and tiny differences in marks, luster, color, strike, and preservation can separate ordinary mint state examples from elite pieces. This is where the 1980 issue becomes especially interesting. PCGS auction records currently show an extraordinary $18,000 auction record for a 1980 Lincoln cent graded NGC MS64RD, sold through Heritage Auctions on August 31, 2025. That result demonstrates why collectors should never judge a coin's potential solely by its face value or by looking at an ordinary circulated example. At the same time, an auction record represents a specific exceptional coin and should not be interpreted as the normal value of every 1980 cent. A fine condition coin is fundamentally different from a rare, professionally graded, exceptionally preserved specimen. This distinction is extremely important for anyone making a YouTube video about coin values because it keeps the discussion exciting while also giving viewers realistic expectations. When discussing the 2026 market for the 1980 Lincoln Memorial cent, collectors should separate ordinary examples from exceptional specimens. Current reference information lists the 1980 issue with an estimated value of about $1.24 or more in uncirculated condition, while ordinary circulated pieces generally do not command hundreds or thousands of dollars merely because they carry the 1980 date and D-mint mark. For a coin specifically described as fine condition, the realistic approach is to treat it as a common circulated collectible unless it has another important feature. The possibility of substantial value comes from factors such as an authenticated mint error, an unusual variety, exceptional preservation, or a top-level certified grade. At the extreme end, the documented $18,000 auction record for a 1980 specimen shows that exceptional examples can attract serious collector attention. Therefore, if you find a 1980 cent in your collection, do not immediately assume it is worth thousands, but do not throw it away either. First, inspect it carefully. Check whether the D-mint mark is genuine and whether the coin appears to have unusual doubling or another mint-made characteristic. Examine the surfaces for evidence of cleaning, scratches, corrosion, or environmental damage, because these problems can greatly reduce collector appeal. If the coin appears unusually sharp, lustrous, and well-preserved despite being decades old, professional authentication and grading may be worth considering. The biggest lesson is that condition and rarity work together. A common coin can become highly desirable when an exceptional example survives, while a circulated example of the same date may remain inexpensive. The 1980 Lincoln Memorial cent is a perfect example of why coin collecting is about much more than simply looking at the number printed on a coin. Its enormous mintage means the normal issue is not a scarce coin, but its history, copper composition, Denver mint origin, Lincoln portrait, and famous memorial reverse make it an important part of the Lincoln cent series. For collectors searching through old jars, inherited collections, rolls of cents, or boxes of loose change, the best strategy is to examine every coin carefully rather than relying on exaggerated claims about guaranteed values. A normal fine condition 1980 cent should generally be viewed as a modest value collectible, while a truly exceptional error, variety, or high-grade certified example can be a very different story. The documented auction record of $18,000 proves that extraordinary 1980 cents can reach impressive prices under the right circumstances, but that figure belongs to an exceptional certified coin and should never be presented as the guaranteed value of a regular circulated specimen. So if you have a 1980 Lincoln Memorial cent, take a close look at it before spending or selling it. Check the date, the D-mint mark, the condition, the color, the strike, and especially any unusual characteristics that could indicate a genuine mint error. If you believe your coin is unusually valuable, compare it with recent auction results and consider professional authentication rather than relying only on online claims. Important value disclaimer. Market values can change with grade, certification, color designation, variety, authenticity, demand, and actual auction results. The values discussed here are reference market information, not a guarantee that every 1980 Lincoln Memorial cent will sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars. The real treasure may be the exceptional coin hiding among ordinary cents, and careful examination is what separates a common 1980 penny from a potentially important numismatic discovery. Thanks for watching.